Welcome to this Arnold Culliford knitwear tutorial on sewing sleeve and side seams in one using mattress stitch. This tutorial is part of our Something to Knit Together Winter Edition collection, and I'm demonstrating on this beautiful sweater designed by Natalie Warner. Already in this series we've done a video on seaming the shoulder seams with backstitch and setting in the sleeve head using mattress stitch, and you can find links to those videos in the notes for this video. Today I'm going to walk you through how to join the sleeve seam and the side seams using mattress stitch, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a stepwise process. The first thing I'm going to do is just to pin in place the sleeve and side seams, matching up the stitch patterns to make sure that I stay nice and even all the way along as I'm seaming it. So obviously just roughly through the rib, and then we've got these garter ridges in the lovely basket weave pattern on this sweater, and so we can just make sure that we're matching them up each side as we go along, because there's nothing worse when you're seaming than realizing that you've got really off track and it's kind of the seams aren't lying lined up neatly as they should be. That's that. Obviously at some points it's easier to see than on others. There we go, back to being nice and clear there. And obviously at the underarm, where you've got the seam where you sewed in your sleeve head, you want to make sure that that seam is nicely lined up as well. Once you've pinned together your seam entirely, then you're going to start sewing it together. I'm using the tail from the cast on edge of my sleeve, which was left nice and long, and that's going to take me quite a way along the seam, but it won't take me all the way, and you can decide yourself whether you'd like to then weave in the end and join in a new piece, or whether you'd like to do a felted join to join in a new stretch of yarn so that you can come all the way down to the other end. You'll find a video tutorial on how to work a felted join elsewhere on our channel, and I'll leave a link to it in the notes for this video. To start our mattress stitch, we're going to make a figure of 8 between the bottom two corners of the cuff, and that will keep the bottom two edges nice and level with each other. There's nothing worse than the edge of a seam not meeting neatly. So we've gone from bottom to top through that right hand corner, and then bottom to top again through the left hand corner, and that makes like a little figure of 8 shape, and we're going to pull that tight. The stitches at the edge of my cuff here are showing as pearls on the right side, and so it's really straightforward to match up. We're going to go under these pearl bumps in order to do our mattress stitch. So on the first side we're just going to go under one pearl bump, and then on the second side we're going to go under 2, and this just means that the 2 rows, instead of trying to line up slightly skew-if, it'll keep them lying straight. So we went under 1 pearl bump at the very bottom on the right hand side, and we're going under 2 on the left, and from now on we'll be going under 2 strands of yarn each time. So the secret with mattress stitch is that you're always putting your needle back in where your yarn came out, and then we're taking 2 rows each time. So we're going under 2 pearl bumps, and then on this side here's where the yarn came out, so we're going back in there and then under 2 pearl bumps again. And you can leave it a little bit loose for a few stitches as you go, just to give you a bit of space to work. And then once you've done a few, you can do that satisfying zipping it up and tightening it up, and you'll see that as it tightens up, let's do that now. So we've left it a bit loose. As it tightens up, zunk, then it's basically invisible the way it's joined. So I'm going to continue working up here, taking 2 of these pearl bumps at a time, and you can rejoin me once I'm not matching up reverse stocking stitch to reverse stocking stitch, and I'll show you how it looks for different combinations. I've finished joining the rib section, and I'm now going to be working up a section of stocking stitch. The increases in this pattern are worked a little bit in from the edge, and that just makes it much easier for you to seam, because it means you're not worrying about those increased stitches. They're not confusing the issue. When you're seaming stocking stitch, you can actually see the V's of each of the stitches. Here's a really clear one here. And so you're looking to go 1 stitch in from the edge. So here's where our yarn came out from our last stitch. We're going straight back in there, and can you see that between those 2 V's we've got the 2 running strands, and that's what we're picking up in this section. And then the same on the other side, back in where the yarn came out, and there are the 2 running strands that we're picking up between the columns of stitches along here. So we keep going in that way, back in where the yarn came out, under 2 running strands, that's 2 rows, always going straight vertically up the seam. Again, if you want to leave them a bit loose and then tighten them as you go, definitely can do that. Right, here's the last one, and now I'm coming to the first garter ridge, and that means that instead of being the running strand behind, it's now like the pearl bump or the garter ridge on the front of the work for that first row. I've left it a little loose, so I'm just going to tighten it up nicely. Don't forget, when you pull on it to tighten it, do just give it a stretch back in the other direction, just to make sure you've still got some elasticity in that seam. But look at how neatly those stocking stitches have been joined there with the garter stitch ridges just coming up. And here we have the garter stitch ridges. So we're going back in where the yarn was before, and as I just said, that first ridge presents as a pearl bump, so you pick up that pearl bump and then dig underneath to find the yarn running between the 2 V-shaped stitches so that you get the second row. So we've already got the pearl bump there, so we're looking for the running thread. There it is, and then the bump for the ridge is the second one. So it's still just joining 2 rows, and you're still just, it's the same running thread between the stitches, but where the garter ridge has the pearl bumps showing instead of the V's, then obviously that running thread is lying on the front of the work as the pearl bump. So you're picking up that rather than something hidden below. And as you work along the edge, you'll be alternating between sections where you've got stocking stitches and you're digging for those 2 strands between the columns of V's, and then ridges where you pick up the pearl bump and then dig for the strand between. And you literally keep doing that until you come to the underarm, and hopefully you'll have stayed nicely lined up. If you find that you're getting slightly off, that your garter ridges aren't meeting as they should, then you can adjust it. On the side that's got more fabric, continue to take 2 strands of yarn for each stitch, and the side that's got less, take 1 strand once in a while, just to use up any extra until you're back on track and your garter ridges are lining up exactly as they should do. But hopefully, as long as you're always putting the needle back down where the yarn came out, that shouldn't be a problem on a sleeve and side seam, because you should have exactly the same number of rows on both sides of the fabric, because it's the same piece of fabric, it's 2 sides of the same thing. We've reached the underarm section of the seam, and the two cast off edges that have been seamed in as part of the setting in the sleeve head are lined up nicely, and so we're just going to continue to mattress stitch along, and you might want to put in an extra stitch or two at that cast off edge. So I'm literally just going to do that by going down through the fabric at the seam. Ooh, it should be actually quite tricky to get your needle through because it's nice and well seamed, and then through the fabric on the other side. And I'm just going to put a couple of stitches on top of each other there just to reinforce that point. Hopefully nobody's going to be looking there anyway, although it will be basically invisible. Okay, so we've just reinforced that point where the two seams met, and now we're going to continue to seam the side seams of the sweater. This is done in exactly the same way. The only tiny difference is that now, because you're working from the end to the beginning rather than beginning to end, your stitches are going to be the other way up, so your V's will be looking like little mountains rather than like V's. So here we go again. Under 2 running stitches at the edge of the work. Not running stitches, sorry, running threads. Here we go, there's the purl bump and the one under the V. And on this side, purl bump. Oh, there we go. And the one between the V. And we'll carry on working in that way all the way back down till we've reached the hem of the sweater. And I'll show you how it looks when we get there. I've reached the very last section of the mattress stitch that's required to join the sleeve and side seams in one, and I'm here on the rib at just the very last section. And so we're just going to finish this off by working under 2 stitches on each side, just exactly the way, 2 rows, 2 threads, just exactly as we have done all the way along. I really like mattress stitch because you're working from the right side of the row, and you can just see immediately if it's not looking tidy as it joins. It makes it much easier to make little adjustments or to spot if there's a problem and take it out and redo just that little section where you're up to. When you're working back stitch or other seaming methods, if you're working from the wrong side, it's not really until you turn it back out the other way that you can see if there's any kind of an issue. And I'm nearly there now, just into the last few rows. Always going back in where the yarn came out. Oh, look at that. That's very pleasing. Okay, and at the end here, I've only got 1 row remaining, so I'm just going to go under that one. And then I'm going to go straight through to the back of the work. So now that edge, I'm really happy that that edge is as flat as it's going to get. And so to finish it off, I'm just going to turn to the wrong side, and my yarns come out here on the right. So I'm going to go over to the left, and I'm just going to go through both layers of fabric straight through like that, just to make a little loop around and just fasten off that section like we did at the underarm. Just go through there a couple of times just to make it really nice and strong at that edge. And then all that remains is for me to weave in my ends. I wove in the end of my seam up the back of the seam there. I do have a few ends at this point because I used 2 balls of yarn to cast on, so I had both of those ends on that side and one on the other. But if you look at the seam now from the right side of the work, hopefully you can see how neat and tidy that looks. I do hope you found this tutorial on seaming your side and sleeves in one using mattress stitch helpful. If you've enjoyed our video tutorial, then do click the link up here to visit our website, where you can find all sorts of books and yarns that will teach you new techniques. Every purchase from our website helps support us in creating new tutorials for you. And we've got a button down here to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you're sure to catch our next video tutorial when we release it. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye bye.